In this tutorial, we're going to make this surface. And that surface is what we're going to use to project these curves that we built out on front onto. And that way we'll get three-dimensional curves that we'll build our two-rail sweep from. So let's get started on that. So now we have this model, and I'm going to do some layer work so I'm not playing show and hide. I have my working layer, which is in purple. I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to call it wrap surface. Or thereabouts, and I'm going to give it a color, like, I don't know, I just like using light blue for surfaces. So I'm going to start with that, and I'm going to make it current. And I want to get curves from this mesh, so I'm going to go and let's turn off the glasses, and I'm going to go into the front view, and I want to map some curves from this. So the command we're going to use is curve from objects, surface, section, and I select this. Now, if it's not selecting, why do you think that is? Because remember, we had locked this. If this was locked, it would not select. So make sure, if it's not selecting, make sure it's unlocked. And that's my object, and I'm going to put a line roughly above and roughly below, and maybe I'll put my glasses on to see that. I'm glad I did that. So I'm going to do another surface, and I'm going to come here. So I'm above and below, and let's turn that off. And now it looks like a straight line in the front view, but in our perspective view, so we have these curves. Now this one is not in the right spot, so I'll get rid of that one. Okay, so I have these curves, and now we have to realize what kind of curvature we're dealing with, because remember that this mesh is not smooth. It's made up of all those facets. So when we turn off this, we get these curves, and if we look at them carefully and turn on the points on them, we have some curves that we need to do a little work on. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is we don't need the back of this. So let's cut it back so that we're only modifying less work to do. So I'm going to come in here and get into a side view. And I'm going to put a line roughly behind the ears. It's not critical. Just want to make sure. Now, I want to trim this. And make sure when you do the trim that apparent intersections are selected, because this line is not intersecting either of these curves, right? So it's sitting out there in space, but apparently it's intersecting in our orthographic view. So now I just got this oriented on what's the front and what's the back. So let's turn back on the head. And okay, so it's facing outside like that. And so let's give it a trim and cut there and there. And so now we have some curves to start working with. And we're not going to go over the nose. It's not like a scuba mask. It's going to be glasses. So we're going to remove this nose detail. And I won't make any obvious jokes about spiting the face to remove the nose. So cut that out. And cut that out. Notice I'm just using a straight line at this point. And more on that in a minute. And I'm going to cut out this ear detail. I'm trimming it here. And do the other side. Now, some of you might say, hey, why are you doing both sides if it's a symmetrical shape? Good question. You could just do one side and split it and mirror it. So now I want to get these curves smoother. Okay, so I'm going to use a rebuild. And predictions on what degree curvature this is going to be. The input is a 1 degree curve, which makes sense because it's a series of straight lines, right? So I have it set at 4, and that is just not acceptable, right? So there's my input curve, there's my rebuild curve. That's just way too much change. So I'm going to boost it up to 20 points and see what that does. And that's much better. And it's giving me the deviation. The maximum deviation is 0.08, 0.09 about approximately. And that's at this sharp corner. So that looks pretty good. I'll take that one. And I'll do the same thing on the bottom, but I have to join it because I did those. So I'm just going to come in here and make sure it's joined as one curve. And I'm going to do that rebuild. And let's see what that looks like. Now, looks pretty symmetrical, but it might not be. So I'm going to, because this sculpt is not a CAD model, it's a sculptor. So we have, I'm looking, it's not as symmetrical as I would like it to be. This is a little different from this. So I am going to do what I said before, and I'm going to split and mirror. Before I do that, I want to just take out this little wrinkle here. And let's just see if we could maybe get rid of that point. And maybe just get rid of that one. All right, so it's kind of coming straight in the back. And I'm going to tweak this one a little bit here. Let's get a nice even curvature. I'm not going to do the other side because I'm going to come in here and do the old split and mirror. So let's come here, or actually call it a trim. And which side did I work on? I like that side better. So let's trim. You might as well. Got those, and I'm going to come here and use the mirror. And turn off that center line plane and give them a join. Okay, so I got two nice curves, and let's see how they look on the head. All right, so I've smoothed out some of the detail, right, so that it doesn't show his face is face. It's not a smooth surface, and so we're trying to make this into a smooth nerve surface so we can make our glasses. So I have these two curves, and I want to create a sweep two rails. So I have the two rails. I need cross section. So I'm going to go and just put a line endpoint to endpoint. Now I don't want a straight line there. I want to have a curved line. So I'm just going to rebuild that curve. And instead of going way up to 20, I'm going to go 4. It's just, again, the trick we used last time. I have a point count of 4 and a degree 3 curve. And I take that and turn on the points. And now this is important, that you make sure you go in the right direction, because remember, we get if the curvature is not perpendicular, if it's in line with this, we'll get a flat effect. We don't want that. So I have this curve, and I pulled it out to the side, and because I want to give it some concavity. So I have that, and for the sake of argument, I'm just going to put it on the other side too, and I'm mirroring it because go into the front view, because I sort of arbitrarily pulled those points out. It's going to be hard to just draw that again the same. This way I guarantee to have the same point. So I have this, and I'm ready to do my 2 rail sweep. So I have these curves here, and surface 2 rail, sweep 2, curve, curve. Remember, no enter between them. Cross section, enter. And looks pretty good. I'll take it. Okay, so I have that, and let's see how that fits on. So now it's cutting into his brow, his Cro-Magnon looking brow there. So I'm going to just take this and just goose it out just a little bit. Right, so still it's fitting pretty tight, but it's not a mold. It's sort of a general surface that approximates his form. So that looks pretty good. So I'm going to take that one, and then in the next step, I'm going to come here, and I have these curves. I have to do a little bit of work on these so that I get my, I want to have them set just so. But in the front view, I'm going to project them onto this surface, and that is how we'll get our 3-dimensional curves in the next lesson.